Welcome to the Ravenswood City School District's regular board meeting of December 11th, 2025. We will call the meeting to order at 6:03 p.m. We will begin with our roll call. Trustee Bloom. Here. Trustee Shivomi. Here. And I myself, Laura Nunez, am present. So we do have quorum. We'll move on to item number C, which is the approval of the agenda. Do we have any questions or comments regarding the agenda?
Through the chair, we should pull item 5A22, as we have comments from the floor on that item. It's 5A22.
Any other questions or comments for you? Okay, so I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda with item 5A22 pulled.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
So I have a second.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 3-0. We'll move on to item number 2, which is public comment. And so this is any members of the public who would like to address anything that is not on the agenda. This is a time to do so.
Through the chair, I have no speaker cards.
Amazing. So as I see now, we will move on to item number 3, which are some updates. Any board member comments?
Through the chair, I was able to attend the Castano winter concert, and it was a really good time to see our kids. And we had a problem with parking because there were so many people that wanted to come and watch all the kids from TK through 5 perform there. And so I just want to give a big shout out to Principal White, the staff there, the assistant principals, Ms. Sua and Mr. Dominic, and all the other folks who are involved in just making that whole space just come to life with lots and lots of energy. So it was a great show. I did have to leave early because I had to move my car. So I will just say that. But it was a great time, and I was glad that I was able to attend and just see our community in action and just seeing them just have joy with it.
I was there alongside Trustee Ravenswood and had a great time, and I did not have to move my car.
I don't think we've had a board meeting since the Post Road was opening. And so I will say that our staff and everyone on deck, like pulls off miracles every single day. And to get moved in over Thanksgiving break, some teachers giving up their Thanksgiving break to come in and set up their classrooms. Like, it looked amazing Monday morning when we got in there, and the kids are so excited to be on the new campus. So it's very, very beautiful. I think there's still some growing pains here and there, but it's amazing to have such a great new campus. And so now we will move on to our superintendent's.
Yeah, I'll just carry on from that. Being able to walk the campus with our principal, Alex Cazada, at Los Robles from McNair, the welcoming front office, the beautiful landscaping, and the classrooms that really suit the work that we're doing in all of our schools, where we're doing a lot of transformational work. And another site that we were able to highlight that transformational work was at Castano School of the Arts this morning, where we hosted Supervisor Lisa Gauchier and our County Executive Officer Mike Callaghy, showcasing the Big Lift implementation, where we were able to visit TK, Kinder, and intervention classes, where the strategies and techniques that Big Lift uplifts to support foundational literacy is really taking hold in Ravenswood. And we were able to be a model school to be able to illustrate the work that's happening, which is fantastic. And a tribute to what you said in regards to the hard work and reflection that our teachers and staff are doing, along with our leaders, to impact student outcomes. Just want to reiterate that the party is still continuing. We still have a lot more events closing out the school year for next week. The middle school, as well as Los Robles Ronald McNair, have several events next week. And we're also in the midst of middle year assessments. And we're going to get a sense of how our students are doing at this point of the year to be able to adjust our instruction And as well as our parents have an opportunity to connect with our families next week during parent-teacher conferences to ensure that we are in lockstep with each other to support our students and their academic achievement.
Thank you. For the record, trustee Severo walked in at 6:07 p.m. We'll now move on to item number 4, which is a consideration to approve the first interim financial report.
Good evening, trustees, Superintendent Sudaria. I'm here tonight to present our first interim budget update. So materially, our first interim budget largely resembles our adopted budget. We have seen increases in both revenues and expenditures. On the revenue side, our increases are due primarily to unexpected increases in property taxes. And on the expenditure side, we're projecting about $0.9 million more in personnel costs due to overtime costs associated with our ongoing construction projects. We do expect to see our budget return to balance at the end of this current fiscal year. So we are a little ahead of schedule, which I will address a little bit later in this presentation. We've also just begun the budgeting process for next school year. We sent out our preliminary budget allocations to site leaders earlier this week, and we will be meeting with them all after the holiday break to start digging into the details of next year. I do want to note that with the closing of the primary school and the resulting increase in enrollment, we are anticipating moving out of basic aid status next year and back into LCFF funding for the foreseeable future. And finally, we are about to close out last year. Our auditors have asked for an audit extension, but they're finishing up their work, and we expect to be able to present their findings to the board during the February 12th board meeting. So as I mentioned, our revised budget includes about $2 million more in property taxes than our initial projections. This was split fairly equally between secured and unsecured property taxes. Obviously, this is good news for us this year, but because of the expected reversion back to LCFF funding, it's not going to be quite as impactful in future years as it otherwise would be. We've also seen an increase of about $1 million more in personnel costs this year, as I mentioned, primarily as a result of employee overtime related to ongoing construction projects. Now on to our multi-year forecast. This is what we're calling our original look. This is a slide you've seen many times with our surplus era during the COVID years of stimulus funding. The deficit era, which we are actually coming to the end of ahead of schedule, and then back to balanced, which in our original look was going to be in about a couple years from now. So we're ahead of schedule of that original look, but we have revised our forecast. A number of trustees mentioned that you'd like to see a revised slide now that we have taken into our budgeting projections the closure of the primary school, and we have some more information around enrollment that we've used in our preliminary budget allocations for next year. So here's what we're calling our revised forecast. The left of the slide is kind of that old look, the surplus era, the planned deficits that we are actually coming to the end of ahead of schedule and entering our new surplus era, which is primarily driven by the one-time payments from CZI, as well as upfront payment on the flood lease. So we are anticipating surpluses for the next 3 or 4 years. This slide is showing you what our numbers are looking at right now, which is entering deficit spending again in about 5 or so years. We are working very hard to make sure that we have a plan for getting back to balanced. We're not showing that on this slide because we're still working on it, but it is certainly not our intention to begin a deficit era without a plan for those green arrows to return. So that is what Will and I will be working on really hard in the business office over the next few years to come up with the strategy for getting this. Here's another look at our revised forecast. This is looking at total expenditures per pupil. I want to point out that our per pupil expenditure has grown by over 200% since school year 18-19. And with the increase of the primary school students next fall, we are anticipating that the per pupil spending will start to decrease again. The blue boxes there are per pupil spending over the years. The dark blue line is average California spending, and the red dotted line is an example of one of our neighboring districts, Palo Alto Unified. So we've kept up with our neighboring districts in recent years. We are going to fall off of that a little bit. Then the red, you can see that in the red column. But that top line is where our funding level would be without the CZI 4-year grant. So what that grant has bought us is a longer runway for us to figure out how to get us back to balanced. So the fact that we're ahead of where we initially projected with deficit spending is good. It means that we've figured out how to operate with what we have now. And that gives us a really strong foundation for figuring out this new phase, which we've started. It's to my next slide. We've started that already with our initial budget allocations that we just went out to our site leaders that include the best information that we have right now around enrollment next year and expenditures. We will be meeting with, like I mentioned, budget owners starting in January to really dive into their school budgets and talk about strategic spending and how they want to tweak things, change things. But we're ready for that. We're ready for that project. We're excited about it. And for this year, we're still we're kind of living our year, reviewing our budget, adjusting as necessary. Things are looking really good right now. And like I mentioned, we're hoping to have audit results to you in. So that is our presentation. Are there any questions?
Maybe 2 slides from the end, the per pupil spending. Do we have somewhere, or I imagine we don't, but it is possible to, I love these comparisons, like between state and then, neighboring school districts like Palo Alto. I'm interested in what the expenditures are, like your average expenditure per student, not numbers, but like what they actually are, the categories. Like, I just think that would be an interesting story to understand. So, because right now, as you're saying, we're spending similarly to a neighboring district. Then my sub question is, then are we spending it on similar things, or what are the differences in those spending? Just because I think, there's certain assumptions we all can walk away with, and I think it just helps bring more nuance and detail to the story of where money is going. That could be important for current and future conversation.
We should be able to find that. We can find our percentages for you easily. Surrounding districts, that's all public information, so we can dive into that. But I don't know, Will might have the numbers.
Yeah, and this is not anything I'm expecting right now.
47, 32. Just a couple of points. That one, we do in our budget update, our initial budget update, we talk about exactly where our money's going, which we didn't include today, but we have and we've shared. The second thing is, I think this is implicit in your question, but I just want to name it. We don't usually talk about the total amount of money we spend per pupil, because it really masks the underlying need of our students relative to surrounding districts. So one thing that isn't apparent in this graph is we spend a lot more on English learners because we have a much higher percentage of students who are English learners. We spend a lot more on special education because we have students with higher special education needs on average. We spend more on homeless transportation because we have more students who are homeless. None of that is captured in this, right? So, when I look at this, sort of more of a national hat on or an objective hat on, there's really no rational case that could be made for Palo Alto's line being higher than Ravenswood's line ever, right? When you account for student need in any kind of meaningful way, Ravenswood line should be 20, 30, 50% higher than the okay, again. Ravenswood's line should be, the bar should be higher than Palo Alto line because of our students. Right? When you look at where the money actually goes though, like if you just looked at non-personnel and personnel, most districts fall between 60 and 80% on personnel, right? Non-personnel is sort of the balance, but that's not as helpful as I think looking at the actual needs of the students and accounting for them when you're making these sort of inter-district comparisons. This is probably a very long, rambly answer to your question, but hopefully it's somewhat helpful.
Thank you. Through the chair. Also just to clarify, a couple slides back when you talked about the revised, yes, this revised forecast. I just want to say it more plain maybe, is that we as a school district, meaning the business office and Dr. Eager here and his whole team, in conjunction with the superintendent and us and everybody asking all these questions, planned that while we were in our surplus era, we were going to save so that while we're in our deficit era, we have the money to be able to not worry about decreasing student expenditures or decreasing personnel or taking away specials, which are music, dance, PE, all of those things. And so when you say that we are going to be in the green and in the surplus era in 27, 28, 29, 30, you guys are working on what that plan is going to be so that when we're in our deficit era again, it's not a surprise and we don't have to go through the process of cutting and closing and doing things like that.
That's exactly what we're doing. And so what we intentionally did when we created budgets for school sites is we didn't just spend all that money. Our goal is we do not want to go like this, right? We are trying to, so we are actually seeing a slight increase in per pupil spending next year. We need more teachers, we need money, we are spending money. But we also have some open seats, so we're not having to spend as much as we hope. So we are trying to sort of bend the curve as much as we can, because that's exactly, so you see even in this slide, right, that the red's going down, but it's not dropping. And that is exactly, you know, we don't know if we'll be able to stay exactly where we've been, but our goal is that we will maintain the same level of services, same level of opportunities for our students. And we're glad we have some space to figure that out because of the funding.
And I will also say, like, I am not surprised by the increase in spending because we are taking on what 250 something, over 200, maybe 300, that many students in 1 year, which is a very unprecedented thing to do. So hiring more teachers, hiring more staff, that personnel cost makes sense to me. I just want to make sure that we all are aligned, and us in the budget committee over here who asked a lot of questions, that we all are also sharing that we're asking these questions because we want to make sure that when we're in that deficit space, we're not having to think about hard decisions of what to cut. But we're going to plan so that we don't have to do those things, hopefully. But again, I understand that school budgets can change. This is probably what you're going to say. School budgets can change and that we can't really forecast into like 10 years from now. We're going to try as hard as we can, but to be prepared, but things can change as we have seen in the last couple of years. Things can change in federal funding, things can change in state funding. So we definitely understand that. So I just want to say thank you to the team for being really cautious with us and answering all our really difficult questions because, you know, we asked you to do that 10-year, 20-year, 30-year forecast for us. So, but we also understand. So we thank you for the work that you did and also for just presenting this to us.
Now merging a little bit of both of your questions actually, but one thing I think Jesse didn't add right now, but if you look at the gray bars, that's our expenditure. What we're trying to do is really slowly increase our expenditure to make sure people get raises. That's what the growth is. We're trying to be really slow on that. Even though this board has done probably more than any other board in the state to control our revenue through leases and fundraising, going after grants, we don't control how much money. At the end of the day, we don't. We're given money. What we do control is our expenditure. That's what we control. And so Jessie, when she was saying, we're kind of balanced ahead of schedule. We did, but we also worked to kind of close the deficit when we found out about the primary school. We did a whole bunch of stuff at the end of last year to kind of actually work towards being balanced, right? Because we can control the expenditures. And when you look at this graph, the real story is those gray bars. There's a jump next year with the enrollment, and then they're level. And that revenue line's all over the place, right? The revenue is what's dictating whether or not we have a surplus or a deficit, because we are doing our darndest to keep that per pupil expenditure stable, so schools don't go on that crazy revenue route.
We're not gonna put it up here because you would hate it. But we have a long-term plan that goes out to 2050, maybe. So we're projecting out as far as we can and looking at, like Will's saying, looking at expenditures and seeing what we do. So we could probably come up with any scenario you wanted and we could show it to you. But yes, that is our goal, is the steady climb, the hope that revenue keeps up.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve the first interim report.
I'll make a motion to approve the first interim financial report.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. We will now move on to item number 5. The consent agenda. Item 22. Come back. Okay, so we will approve the rest of the consent agenda and then come back to item 22. So I will entertain a motion to approve item the consent agenda with 22 pulled. Yes, it was just 22 that was found.
I'll
Okay.
make, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with item 22 pulled.
Anyone second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries 4-0. And now we will discuss item number 22.
So for 5A22, we pulled, because we have comments from the floor. We have, well, from the person from the floor. We have, Justin and Gina Plummer. And you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Good evening. I'm Justin Plummer. It's my wife Gina. We own Plummerville, and we submitted the low bid on a public works project you guys had out for bid. It's your new maintenance facility on the school grounds. We were the low bid, and our bid was considered non-responsive. And by following the instructions to bidders and the addendum, it is responsive 100%. So we came to comment. We've got legal counsel on this. We've never been a low bid and been rejected before. So hopefully you guys got a copy of the legal counsel letter addressed to the district. It was in an email today, and it also has some email correspondence back and forth with us to the district and their responses. And it also has the bid results. But the whole gist of it is in the instructions to bidders, it directs us to list subcontractors. And so we list anybody more than 0.5% of the total is required by law for us to list them as a subcontractor. And then it explicitly tells us that anything we do not list for a subcontractor, we're responsible to carry out ourselves. In the addendum, it requests that we list a design team and a manufacturer, and we are both. This sort of a project we've done many times. I mean, we do this stuff in our sleep as a company. We self-perform the bulk of the entire project. And by following the instructions to bidders and the addendum, it tells us that anything we haven't specified as subcontracted, we're responsible to perform. So we're being called non-responsive for not calling ourselves again and again on the form. So, but anyways, that's the gist of our reason we came to propose you guys look at this again. Yeah, because we do have a responsive bid, so maybe you guys consider again, did we follow the instructions from the addendum and the notice to bidders instructions? And that's why we self-perform these things. So you guys have any questions that we can help clarify?
Dr. Good, do you mind coming in to explain some context for the trustees?
Are there any questions from the board?
Through the chair, yes, would you like to give some more context to this item and perhaps make a recommendation, or or perhaps you or, our superintendent would like to
Yeah.
suggest whether we should review this, further or continue with the item on the agenda tonight.
Happy to. And first off, I just want to thank Justin and Gina for coming in. I putting together these bids. Government procurement code is a pain in the butt. It's a technical term. It requires a lot of specifics. The goal is to be as specific as possible to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples. And when you're talking about an entire building, it gets complicated. So you need to be really specific with what kind of apples they are, the yellow, how big they are, where they come from, the weight, every single aspect of it. And it takes a lot of time from contractors to put together these bids. And so really appreciate the team putting the work in. What they said was largely correct. In our opinion, they were the low bid. They did 90+% of the application in our minds and everyone's mind correctly. They are qualified bidders who have a lot of experience doing the kind of work. And the specific project we're talking about, just as a reminder, is the maintenance warehouse at the new district office. So it's $2 to $3 million of sort of total cost for that building there and just to the north of the district office. Unlike some of our other projects, this is what's called a design build. So they specialize in kind of prefab things. So a little bit different than kind of the typical thing that we did follow the usual process for this. I think Justin summed it up well. I think the whole dispute here boils down to whether or not one page was completed in a compliant way. We believe, and this is in consultation with our friends at TeleQ who manage these kind of processes, that they needed to list out subcontractors. I think it is a little bit confusing, to be fair. I think we do a lot of this work internally. We do think that they partner with other organizations and other people did fill out this, even though they are similar types of companies. The dollar figure here is small, that between the first and the second bid. This isn't like they came in $1 million less or something like that. I believe, and I think the TeleQ team believes that, they're number one. We're recommending number two because we deem them what's called non-responsive. If we select them and not number two, we believe number two will be here making the same kind of claim saying this is non-responsive. So the board has a couple of choices. We can approve the number two bidder, WE Lyons, who's similarly qualified, reputable, respectable company with a responsive bid. We can accept them. We can accept this group here tonight, or we can reject all bids. Rejecting all bids would mean that we reject all bids and basically start the bidding process over. What that means is they would fill out the form likely, and we'd probably clarify the form to make it very clear this section. Hopefully they'd submit a bid. Hopefully WE Lyons would submit a bid. There's no guarantee though. There's one guarantee, which is if we go through the bidding process, everything's going to be delayed at least a month. Right. So now we're just on the back end adding more time. There's no guarantees that we get the same number of bidders. There's no guarantees that we get lower cost. The cost could be high, could be low, could be high. Our estimate, given sort of kicking into the next year, rising metal prices, it could be higher. So sort of our expectation is higher, but we don't know, to be sure. Staff's recommendation, as included in the consent agenda, is that the board go with respectfully the number two bidder on this and reject the first bid as non-responsive.
Thank you. Oh, but perhaps, I missed someone out there. Is there any, as I understand it, we have followed the legal code to, what we are expected to do. Is there anything that speaks to review, right, in this sort of contestation phase and going back? Is there anything that we are legally required to do? Or is it we followed the code up until this point and we've decided to make a decision and now we can move forward? Is that fine?
I would say we've followed the code up until that point. We believe we followed all the rules. But to be clear, I don't believe that their claim is like completely baseless and without merit. I don't think that this is a crazy lawsuit that is just a nuisance lawsuit. I think the board knows I'd have no problem saying that in front of them if I thought it was. So I don't think that this is an illegitimate lawsuit, but I do think that on the merits, I think we have the stronger argument. But I don't think that theirs is a ridiculous argument, to be sure. Thank you.
Can you give me what's the timeline for this project? Just for this warehouse?
Yeah. We expect it to be about a year. So we're a little bit now behind the rest of the district office. The rest of the district office is slated to open in September or so. This is expected to open in January. So we're a little bit behind where we'd like to be. So if we bid it out and it takes at least a month, we'd be pushing into February.
Through the chair, I think perhaps we're just saying our opinions at this point. I think, thank you for coming to speak on this item tonight. And I'm also happy with our business office for doing their due diligence in this process. And I know it's difficult and tedious. I'm a bit weary of potentially taking us down a path where our timeline is further off schedule, given just expectations of other construction bills in the queue. And so as a former member on the facilities committee, for example, that's a little bit, I'm a bit more worried about that. And so given what you just said for my inquiry about our legal responsibility, my personal suggestion would be that we move forward with what's suggested by superintendent and assistant superintendent, Dr. Eager, but that's just.
Any further comments?
I'll just say my opinion as well. I agree with Trustee Shigomihine. I think being on the facilities committee, I think it's really important for us to keep our timelines. And I believe if our business office is, believe that they have done what they were supposed to do and compliant, I am really wary of waiting till January to do a whole new bidding process, just because we are aware of how prices are shifting and changing every minute. And so I would, just because we cannot guarantee that the bids that come back in that new bidding process would be lower, or the cost would be lower. And so I would like to, my opinion is also to follow the advice or the recommendation of our district office team.
So I guess I'll entertain a motion to approve item number 22.
I'll make a motion to approve item number 22.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 4-0. From there, we will move on to closed session. We will move on to closed session. If we have any members of the public who would like to address anything that's agendized for closed session, this is the time to do so.
Through the chair, I have no speaker cards for a closed session.
All right, so if I see none, we're moving to closed session at 6:37 p.m. Welcome back. We will reconvene open session at 8:18 PM. For report of action taken in closed session for item 7A. Discussion was had and direction was given. For item 7B, discussion was had and direction was given. For item C, the first case, 2526.01, discussion was had and direction was given. And for the second case, 2526.02, action was taken and approved 4-0. Action, for item 7D, discussion was had and direction was given. So now we will be moving on to item 7C, which is a consideration to approve the board member excuse absences. I will entertain a motion to approve resolution 16.
To the chair, I make a resolution to approve, item 7C.
The chair, second. Thank you. So resolution number 26-16, board members excuse absences. Whereas educational code 351208 authorizes that each member of the governing board of the Ravenswood City School District who actually attends all meetings, etc. And this vote refers to trustee Latu.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 4-0. We are now to item 7D, which is just an announcement that the annual board reorganization meeting will be held next Thursday, December 18th at 6 PM. Our next regular board meeting will be held on January 15th, 2025 at 6 PM. And so now the regular board meeting of December 11th, 2025 is adjourned at 8:20 PM.